For a long, long time, a storm has been brewing in the Middle East. But this isn't a conflict fought on open battlefields. No, this one has been fought in the shadows. And today, we're going to pull back that curtain and really try to understand the forces that are pushing these old adversaries right out into the open.
From shadows to open fire. I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? How close is the Middle East to a much wider war? You know, these tensions that have been simmering for so long, they've finally boiled over. And it's got the whole world asking, how did we get to this point? And maybe more importantly, what in the world happens next? Well, the answer, it's buried in a long, complicated history that's been playing out just under the surface.
So, let's start there. Section 1, the Long Shadow War. Look, to really get a grip on the danger we're all facing today, we absolutely have to look back. We've got to decode the strange rules of the game that have defined this whole confrontation for decades.
And that brings us to this idea of a shadow war. So what is it? It's basically a conflict that stops just short of, conventional all-out war. Instead, it's fought through proxies, through cyber attacks, and all sorts of covert operations. Think of it less like a boxing match and more like a really intense chess game. The main players have avoided punching each other directly for years, choosing instead to use other pieces on the board to fight their battles.
So, in the real world, what does that actually look like? Well, for decades, these tensions have been simmering through these indirect confrontations. We're talking about supporting proxy groups in places like Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. We're talking about launching these really sophisticated cyber attacks on critical infrastructure or carrying out secret operations. And every single move is designed to have plausible deniability, right? But when you add them all up, man, they've built up so much pressure. It's like steam in a sealed pot just waiting to blow.
Okay, so what happens when that pot does blow? What happens when the shadows pull back? That brings us to our next section, the clash of military might. We've got to look at the very real, very powerful military hardware that each side has, because that's what's on the table when this thing finally moves out into the open.
And when you look at them side by side, the contrast is pretty stark. On one hand, you have Israel. They've got a smaller but technologically superior military, packed with advanced Western fighter jets and tanks. On the other hand, Iran counters that with sheer size, a huge conventional ground force, plus a massive and growing fleet of drones and what they call asymmetric naval assets. Just picture swarms of small, fast attack boats designed to overwhelm a much bigger, more advanced navy.
So, what this comparison really shows is a conflict of asymmetry. It's technology versus scale. See, this isn't a mirror image fight at all. It's a total clash of military philosophies. Israel, being a smaller nation, bets everything on technology and its super sophisticated, multi-layered defense systems to give it that qualitative edge. But Iran, with its massive size and population, plays a different game. It leverages its scale and its single most important strategic weapon.
And that weapon is its absolutely extensive arsenal of ballistic missiles. When you look at this chart, you can see why this is their ultimate trump card, their ultimate tool of asymmetry. It's how they can bypass a superior air force and hold pretty much any target in the region at risk. It creates this powerful deterrent and gives them the ability to hit back and hit back hard.
All right, so we've got the history, we've seen the hardware. That brings us to the brink of escalation. But how does a shadow war actually turn into a hot war? I mean, what's the trigger? What sets off that unstoppable chain reaction?
Well, this is the razor's edge they're walking on. And this quote really says it all. The distance between a covert strike and an all-out war can be a single, miscalculated decision. I mean, think about that. In an atmosphere this intense, just one strike, one political assassination, one attack on a sensitive site, that could be the one miscalculation that lights the whole fuse.
And this is what experts call the escalation ladder. It's pretty straightforward. For years, this whole conflict stayed on the bottom rungs, right? Proxy attacks, covert ops, cyber stuff. But recently, and this is the scary part, both sides have jumped all the way to step 4, limited direct strikes. So the terrifying question right now is whether anyone is actually willing to take that final step to a full-scale missile exchange.
Because each step up that ladder, it dramatically increases the risk of a regional catastrophe. It's a massive, massive gamble. Every single move raises the stakes, and not just for Iran and Israel, but for the entire Middle East. It pushes the whole region closer and closer to a truly devastating, widespread war.
Which brings us to our final section, a world on alert. Okay, let's zoom out for a second. Let's pull back from just the regional view and see why this one flashpoint has the entire planet on edge. Why should someone in London or Tokyo or New York care about a conflict between these two countries? Well, the answer, it goes way beyond just geopolitics.
The ripple effects would be immediate and they'd be global. We're talking about a massive disruption to global energy prices. We're talking about direct threats to the critical shipping lanes that are basically the arteries of world trade. And of course, you'd see incredible strain on international alliances, because suddenly nations are being forced to pick a side. And that's not even getting into the totally unpredictable economic consequences.
And hey, to put that into perspective, just look at this number. 1/3, nearly 1/3 of all the world's seaborne oil passes right through the Strait of Hormuz. That's a super narrow waterway that Iran can threaten to shut down in a crisis. The shock to the global economy, it wouldn't be gradual. It would be immediate and it would be severe.
What all this proves is a pretty simple but very stark reality. A conflict in the Middle East does not stay in the Middle East. Not anymore. In our world, geography isn't a shield. The shockwaves from something like this would be felt everywhere, through the entire global financial, energy, and political system.
And that leaves us with one final, pretty sobering thought. A question, really. In a world that is this connected, can any fire truly be contained? Because as the shadows give way to open fire, the most critical question isn't about who wins or who loses. It's whether, in a world like ours, the flames of a conflict like this can ever truly be put out.